Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright people, so it's midweek review time because there has been a bit of news over the last few days that I want to discuss. Quite a few things actually, but specifically one topic. Now, there's another thing I want to discuss as well about Daniel Dubois and potentially being ordered to face Trevor Bryan for the WBA regular title at some stage this year. But I think I'll just touch on that briefly in this, but I'll talk about it in a separate video. I've got a thumbnail ready for that as well. But it's this bit of information here that I really want to talk about. Luis Ortiz, fresh off the back of his win over Charles Martin. Now, I said in my post-fight, it was said at the fight, that this was an eliminator for the IBF, and it wasn't a final eliminator. So I said, and many others said the same as well, that likelihood is the IBF will order Ortiz versus Filip Hrgovic next. And lo and behold, they have. They did announce that. Now, Dan Rafael is reporting that Luis Ortiz has now rejected the IBF final eliminator against Filip Hrgovic, I should say. According to Hrgovic's promoter, Calla Sauerland, Joseph Parker is next in line and has now been offered the opportunity instead. Is anyone surprised? Really, anyone surprised? I mean, Luis Ortiz, 5 years ago, I remember when he was meant to face Carlos Takam. I think that was on the Monaco card, and Takam pulled out of that fight, and people at that stage were saying Takam pulled out injured because he was the original opponent instead of Malik Scott, and people at the time were saying Takam's a tough guy, so for him to pull out of a fight against Ortiz, injury or not, that just shows kind of how feared at the time Ortiz was. Ortiz was still, his fans will still say, oh, he's the boogeyman of the heavyweight division still. No, he's not. Luis Ortiz, do I reckon he turned that down himself? I reckon he was told to by Al Heyman. I reckon Al Heyman looked at Ortiz and said, right, this is the plan. It doesn't involve facing Filip Hrgovic in an IBF final eliminator. It doesn't involve that. It involves maybe going down the road of a trilogy fight with Deontay Wilder or potentially an Andy Ruiz fight. I suspect the latter. Do you know why? 2 reasons. One, more money. Is Filip Hrgovic a big draw? Is he a big money name? No, he's not. He's not. It's just, unfortunately, he's not. He's not a big draw. He's not a big money name. So a lot of fighters like Michael Hunter didn't take that fight because wasn't enough money on the table, and Michael Hunter could make more money elsewhere. And I think it's the same with Luis Ortiz and PBC. PBC like keeping it in-house unless they absolutely have to. Okay? So there will be exceptions where they will have a fighter go elsewhere, or maybe they bring a fighter over, etc. Like they had, was it Bryan Castano versus Teixeira, I think the guy's name is, a Golden Boy fighter, and Castano was a PBC fighter. Same with Sean Porter, Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is now no longer with Bob Arum, so God knows he might be with PBC soon enough. But nevertheless, at the time it was on a top ranked show, so they will do it only in extreme circumstances. For the rest of the time, they like to keep it in house. I suspect this is what they're doing, and to be honest with you, yes, they'll make more money from a Ruiz fight, in my opinion, or a trilogy fight with Deontay Wilder than they would make with Filip Hrgovic. But that's not the point. At the end of the day, people would say, well, Ortiz fans and Wilder fans would say, oh, Ortiz is the boogeyman of the heavyweight division. No one wants to fight him. Well, here he is. And it's not the first time he's turned the fight down. Here's the instance where he's offered a final eliminator against Filip Hrgovic, rejected. He was offered a fight against Anthony Joshua back in 2019, career high payday, rejected. You know what? I mean, Luis Ortiz being with Al Heyman, it's a bit... I remember when he was with Matchroom, and I remember this interview well with Coogan and Eddie Hearn, because it stuck with me. I think it was at that show in Monaco. Maybe it was just before, I think it was just before. And Eddie Hearn had Luis Ortiz signed with Matchroom. I remember Coogan, and this is years back, like 5 years ago, but this was just before I think Ortiz fought in Monaco and AJ was getting ready to fight Molina. And Coogan asked him, AJ versus Ortiz? And Eddie Hearn was immediately like trying to just get around that question. Oh, funny enough you mentioned that, I actually was just talking to AJ, and I think he said he's still up, and it was like 8 o'clock at night, and he's like, that's too late for him to be up, and just kind of swayed it away. I mean, it's been a thing with Ortiz. When he was with Golden Boy were actually doing some decent work with him. He went to Matchroom inexplicably because at the time it didn't really make much sense, other than that Joshua fight, which he never got. A year later he was with PBC and he's been there since. Has it really benefited him? At the end of the day, Ortiz was more active with Golden Boy. He could have been fighting on Canelo cards. In fact, I think, if memory serves me correct, he may actually have been in line to fight on the Canelo Smith card at the time he was still with Golden Boy. His last fight with Golden Boy was against Tony Thompson back in 2016. I think Luis Ortiz's career, in terms of how he's been able to maneuver fights and manage them, has been done shockingly. I say shockingly, like, he's made some money from the Wilder fights, but turning down a career high payday against Anthony Joshua, proclaiming to be the boogeyman, and turning this fight down against Hrgovic, is what it is. As for Hrgovic, Joseph Parker is a good opponent. At the end of the day, I prefer him against Joseph Parker over Ortiz. Ortiz is ancient. I mean, he's a shot fighter by the looks of things. So he's there for the taking. I wouldn't have liked to have seen this fight, because although Hrgovic hasn't been looking amazing as of late, he should still have enough to get by Ortiz at this stage in Ortiz's career. As for Joseph Parker, that's a more interesting fight, it's a more complicated fight. I wonder, will Joseph Parker's team go for that fight, or will they look to go down the WBO route? Potentially, because they're highly ranked by them as well. In fact, they may even get offered an eliminator against Joe Joyce if the WBO situation is going to be, drawn out, or maybe for an interim title, who knows. So we'll wait and see with Joseph Parker. If Joseph Parker doesn't take this fight, make Hrgovic the mandatory by default. I mean, this has happened before with Michael Hunter turning down an eliminator. They've had to do this again, and if it happens again where fighters are just not wanting to fight Hrgovic, I would say just make it mandatory by default. At the end of the day, that's what I would say to do. Just make it mandatory by default. At the end of the day, Hrgovic, as I said, he's not the biggest draw in the world, but this lack of real competitive fights is starting to hinder him, because I've said it, he's noticeably been a little bit softer in fights in terms of aesthetically. He's not looked as ripped. Well, he's never really the most ripped heavyweight, but he's looked a lot more fleshy around the midriff in recent fights, like against Radonic and people like that, because I think he knows himself he's superior. He could be in second gear, or go into neutral and still wipe the floor with these guys. He doesn't need to go and put himself, through the mill of training to beat these guys. And I think that he's stagnated as a fighter. I mean, since he fought on the AJ, was that Molina he fought on the AJ Ruiz 2 card? He's done, and Molina's not much to write home about, but he's done zilch since then. Zilch, in terms of, it's not his fault, not completely his fault, because fighters have been unwilling to fight him. But look, that is just, again, like, what do you want me to say about that? If Parker does take the fight, I hope Parker does take that, because it's a great fight. Would I be surprised if he didn't take it? No, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't take it, to be honest with you. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Team Parker might say, we don't need that fight now, we need maybe another building fight against someone tall or someone like that. But look, the whole Hrgovic situation with IBF, I would just make it mandatory. If he's number one and you want someone to fight him, just make it mandatory if no one's willing to fight him. Problem solved. There you go. But that is that. Rob Smith, in his infinite wisdom, has announced that February boxing is back in the UK. I mean, there was hardly any fights on this month anyway. I mean, there was a couple of small hall shows penciled in, but there was nothing major in terms of cards, so why he bothered cancelling all them is beyond me. But he says that the fight with Amir Khan Kell Brook will go ahead. It's been given the green light for February the 19th. Oh, that's in Manchester, isn't it? Yeah, it is now. It's in Manchester, so that's good to go. I haven't really been thinking about that fight a lot lately. We're about 6 weeks out from that fight, so I'd say probably closer to February. Probably February time is when we'll kind of start getting some stuff out about that fight. The Kell Brook and Amir Khan situation. I'm still looking forward to that fight. I'll still watch that fight. Definitely, I won't pay for it, but I'll watch it for definite. In terms of other fights that have been rescheduled, Eubank and Williams is now being targeted for February 5th. So it's a delay of 1 week. So it's not a massive delay, it has to be said. A delay of just 1 week, which has been, basically delay of 1 week. Now, I wonder, because look, I'm happy this fight is getting rescheduled. I don't want this fight to get binned or anything like that. But I do wonder, will they move that fight? Will they readjust that? Will they renegotiate that fight for a different location? Does Liam Williams want it in Wales? Is he really digging his heels in and saying, no, I want this fight in Wales? I'll tell you the reason why. Because in the UK, they could do that fight in the O2. They could do it in Manchester. They could do it in, name me another big arena. The Ricoh Arena. I don't know if it's still called that. Or not the Ricoh Arena. That's for Coventry City. What's the name of that arena in Liverpool? Where Tony Bellew for Echo Arena. Echo Area. They could do it somewhere like there and have fans. In Wales, I think they're only allowed like I know at a rugby game they were allowing like 50 fans. Amazing, isn't it? And in a pub you were allowed 150. Logic, but yeah, I'm not sure if they'll be able to get fans in at that. Maybe something will change between now and then, but I doubt that very much. I think logic would say if you want fans, it would have to be in the UK. Maybe Liam Williams would want home field advantage, even if there's no fans there. I don't think Sky and Boxer would do that behind. I just can't see it. If there's an option to have it in London or somewhere like that where there are fans in attendance, I'm sure they'll move it. It's just the case of does Liam Williams, does Team Williams want to move it? I mean, like if it's behind closed doors, maybe he feels best having home field advantage. I don't know. I'm just surmising with that, but I would imagine that will get moved to somewhere in the UK, probably in London or somewhere like that. Say England, I should say. Errol Spence has confirmed that your Dennis Ugas likelihood is that it will take place in April. So Errol Spence versus your Dennis Ugas in April. Your Dennis Ugas is a tricky opponent. He is. He'll give Errol Spence problems. I'm picking Errol Spence to win the fight, don't get me wrong. But people thinking that this fight is going to be a blowout for Errol Spence, that he's just going to walk through your Dennis Ugas. He's not going to walk through your Dennis Ugas. Your Dennis Ugas, I've been watching videos of him, and there was a nice little highlight reel of him landing very cleanly with the right hand, specifically on southpaws, really finding his range well against southpaws and landing it very well against them. And your Dennis Ugas, although he's not noted as a devastating puncher, he's respectable power there. He's very physically strong. I mean, he is one of the most physically strong welterweights you'd see. It surprised Sean Porter, who was also an extremely strong welterweight, in their fight, which was very close. And I think it'll surprise Errol Spence as well. I think Errol Spence is used to having a size advantage and a strength advantage. And I think against your Dennis Ugas, he'll really be... It'll probably shock him how strong your Dennis Ugas is. I like this fight, I really do. Errol Spence hasn't fought since... Was it December last year, I think it was. So he'll have been out of the ring for a while. He's only had one fight since the car crash. He's had the eye injury, which forced him out of the Pacquiao fight. Yes, Errol Spence did a good job at Danny Garcia. He did. But he still wasn't firing on all cylinders. And I do still wonder about Errol Spence. I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it again. People keep saying to me, oh, gee, he's fine, he got out of it. I'm telling you now, a crash as violent as that, it's gonna have some... I'm telling you now, there's residual damage there. It has to be. Has to be. I mean, it definitely has to be. The WBA are reportedly set to order... Yeah, listen to this. Daniel Dubois versus Trevor Bryan, provided he gets through a guy called Jonathan Goodray, as the fight with Manuel Char is now no longer happening. And yeah, that fight with Manuel Char, I mean, I actually didn't realise that card was happening at the end of this month. I'll talk about this more in a separate video, which will either go up probably tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on what time I get this done at. But I will talk about that in a separate video. But believe me, the way that's the regular title with WBA, by the way. It's not the super title, which is held by Alexander Usyk. It's just kind of like, and to be honest with you, that regular title has been barely defended. I mean, when was the last time anyone... It's been defended once in... How many years? 4 years? Because Char won it in 2017, and then he didn't fight until May or June, just gone against old one-shot himself, Lovejoy. And then you had Trevor Bryan. Was it for the vacant title, or was he... It's a mess, this whole WBA regular title thing. It really is. Yeah, they'll announce him probably against... And the reason I say they'll announce Bryan is because that Jonathan Goodray fight, I mean, that is a mismatch if ever I've seen it. I'll talk about that more in a separate video. But I think that's really it now. They were the main kind of topics I wanted to talk about. I don't really see any other news. Let's have a look-see. Let's have a look-see on boxing scene before I do anything. I like doing these videos where I can just kind of talk about, you know, this, that, and the other. Let's have a look-see here. Gary Russell, yeah, he's got a fight coming up, amazing. I haven't seen Gary Russell. It's been nearly 2 years now since he fought. Chris Congo is actually with Ben Davison now, and he's signed with Boxer. Actually, I did see that. Chris Congo, He lost to Michael McKinson unexpectedly. Unexpectedly, it has to be said. I think it was the start of this year. And I think that was that on the age. Was that on the Usyk or not Usyk? Was that on the Povetkin white card in Gibraltar? I think it might have been. It might have actually been. I know he fought on the first Povetkin white card, and he looked extremely impressive. The guy's name escapes me now. What's the guy's name? It escapes me. The guy he beat, Luther Clay or something like that, and he looked very good, looked excellent in that fight. And then against Michael McKinson, he really didn't look good at all. And I guess we kind of overlooked Michael McKinson, and a lot of us did, to be fair. A lot of us overlooked Michael McKinson. But now he's with Ben Davison, so a new trainer in Ben Davison, signed with Boxer. So watch the space with Chris Congo. I think I definitely did. I maybe jumped the gun, and a lot of others did as well. We jumped the gun a bit on him. We were very impressed by the Luther Clay performance, but maybe we were so impressed by that performance we overlooked a few of the flaws that maybe are there on Chris Congo. But hopefully Ben Davison can iron a few of them out, and we will see him on boxer shows moving forward. Is there anything else that we can talk about today? Because I like doing these little review kind of videos, just chuck a little bit into one. And that's really that. Josh Taylor, wishful thinking to fight 3 times in 2022, but likelihood is twice. I'd say it's unlikely for Josh Taylor to get 3 fights in 2022. He has the one fight this year. He's the one fight in February against Jack Catterall. It's a good fight. Josh Taylor should win that. In the summer, would he stay at 140 or would he move up? I suspect maybe if he wants to have 3 fights, he might have 2 at 140 and then finally finish the year with a 147. Maybe. Would he get 3 fights in? At the end of the day, it depends on how fights go. I mean, like, you could get cut in a fight, you could be out for a couple of months. It could be a 12-round war where you'd need maybe 3 months just to recover from the fight, much less go back in sparring. So it kind of all depends on how the fights go. But yeah, I'm always happy to see Josh Taylor in the ring. I rate Josh Taylor very highly. Very, very highly. Probably one of my favourite fighters to watch from a style point of view. Josh Taylor is just so easy on the eye to watch. His style, the way he boxes, his speed, his punching power, his killer. Josh Taylor is just a all-round fun fighter to watch. One of my favourite to watch, definitely. So that's kind of it now. That's midweek review sorted. Like I said, this probably go up. Might even try and upload this a little after midnight tonight, and because that technically is Wednesday in this part of the world anyway, unless you're in America. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. If you could, people, smash the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Peace.